And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Two Schmoes Show. I'm your host, the infamous Orion, and I am a Schmo.
And I'm Carl, and I'm also a Schmo.
And it is the holiest time of the year for Americans. It's officially balloon season.
Hell yeah.
You thought I meant something else.
We said we weren't going to talk about news.
I know we weren't going to talk about news, but fuck those balloons.
I kind of want to, because it is really fucking interesting that the U.S., and it is most likely a coincidence, because all the news is happening all the time, everywhere, every minute.
Yeah.
But it sure as hell is convenient that we get all this balloon bullshit right after there is a major natural disaster, not natural disaster, a major man-made disaster born out of negligence down in Ohio that is likely going to cause a town of 5,000 people to never be able to return to their homes in any serious capacity.
Isn't that fucked up? Okay, can we...
Yeah.
Okay,
it's very convenient that the news cycle has kind of ignored that in favor of balloons.
Okay, yeah, let's do our journalistic integrity real quick.
Yeah.
And talk about Ohio's train derailment.
Yeah, in East Palestine, Ohio.
Yes.
Which is an unfortunate name, but they had it before the Palestine in the Middle East, so...
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fucked.
So... Why? Why did this happen? Well, a train derailed, and it was along the Ohio-Pennsylvania border.
Yes. There's a train carrying substantial amounts of tankers with polyvinyl chloride material. Basically, the material that they use to make PVC, the plastic.
Oh, you mean PVC? That shit that should not be in your water supply?
Yep. Well, it's not going to be in the water supply because it's in the air as they burn it all, which is, unfortunately, the best option that they have, so it doesn't just turn into a bomb.
So you're telling me, good sir, that these people are breathing in hazardous materials into their fucking lungs?
Thankfully, the majority of the people have been evacuated. And because they're doing it in a controlled burn, it shouldn't cause any immediate effects. But it's going to definitely have long-term problems. There's no question about it. But I mean, at this point, it's fucked up, right? If you're someone who lives there, you have the options of let them do this controlled burn to not have it explode all at once, and deal with the long-term consequences of it and have all of your possessions destroyed as it gets coated in fine layers of this crap, or let them just let it be a bomb and blow up and probably kill you and all of your family anyways.
Yeah, it's a lose-lose.
It is. And it has been a welcome reminder of just how shitty these train companies are. They're just... Like, we knew this was the case for forever, right? You know, you have the train barons that have been around since, in the U.S., like the late 1800s, right? That's where you get, you know, you have your iron barons, you get your train barons, and those are, like, historically the large businesses that held political power in the U.S., and we've kind of forgotten that, as the majority of people don't travel by train anymore, so they're not reliant on them, or they don't know how they're reliant on them, right?
Yeah.
And this is a nice reminder of how shitty they are, where their response to this was to give $25,000 to the town.
Just to the town?
Yes. $5 per person.
Yeah, that's totally enough money.
Yeah. They'll rebuild from that, no problem.
Fuck, I'll take $5.
And especially so, since, as far as anybody can tell, the derailment was likely as a result of inefficient or incomplete inspections. Or inspections that weren't done right.
Oh, no. Oh, no. You mean it was almost entirely avoidable?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No
And
way.
it's not like the people actually working on these trains have been striking lately to get better pay and get better benefits so that they can do their job better in turn. That definitely hasn't been happening as well.
How could we avoided this consequence?
Yeah. There was just no way.
Ah, that burns me more than that PVC.
Yeah. No, don't worry. The PVC will always be there.
Mm. Your friendly neighborhood PVC.
Yeah, but it's pretty fucked.
Yeah, I don't. Oh, is there literally anything they can do in terms of a lawsuit?
Oh, absolutely.
I was about to say because that's a
So the
negligence case.
yeah, so the big thing is that, the vast majority of these people are going to have some type of homeowners insurance.
Yep.
And the insurance companies are in turn going to say, we have no way of foreseeing this is going to happen and it's not covered by your policy, so we're not going to do anything. And it's going to turn into a massive thing where they're, like Enron, right?
Yeah.
That was the whole thing where people were getting cancer because Enron fucked up their town, and it took a long time and a lot of people to die and get sick, but eventually they got there. It's probably going to be one of those, unfortunately. The
Fuck.
insurance companies are going to say it's not our problem. The train company is going to say, hey, we didn't have any liability here. It was, fuck off and go away. And they're going to have to slug their way through the courts and appeals with, some pretty damn motivated lawyers in order to get there. And they'll probably get there eventually, but it'll realistically at that point be too late for a lot of people.
It's going to be one hell of a class action, and when I say one hell of a class action, I mean one slow ass class action because they are going to try to settle in that bitch as slow as possible.
Yep. Yeah, it's very bad.
Yeah. Unforgivable, really.
Mm-hmm. It should be.
Yeah.
I will say it has been a good reminder to the UK as they are also going through a similar thing where their train workers are threatening strikes while their train, businesses are trying to cut back on these sorts of inspections by having people work more, work harder for less. And for the people threatening to strike, this is a great thing to point to just say, yeah, do you want this to happen here?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think this
Yep.
should be really a case that, and I know it's not going to be a case like this, but it really should be an example of why we shouldn't fuck around with our chemical trains.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think people in business, and I'm sure as a chemist you respect this, but people don't realize how fucking scary chemicals can actually be, especially like this
Oh,
PVC
yeah.
situation.
It's very bad.
Yeah.
Anything that causes cancer over the long term is very scary. And in a lab setting, we go to great extents to make sure that we limit as much exposure to it as we can. Because it's when you start to deal with that kind of stuff, it becomes a question of when, not if.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna happen eventually. You just don't know when. Yeah. Yeah. It's super disappointing seeing the response from it, how much people have just ignored it.
Yeah.
Because it's avoidable. It should have been avoidable. And they just didn't care. And they're getting some very convenient news coverage that is overshadowing it entirely.
Chiral, Justin Trudeau told us to shoot down a balloon.
It's pretty hilarious that all of the F-22's air-to-air combat missions have all happened in the last week.
It really says something about how we sit on these big, massive weapons, and we don't have really an excuse to use them. Like until we need.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are our excuses. Do you think the balloon was made of PVC?
Probably not.
Darn.
Let's talk about The Last of Us. We got a special sort of double feature this week.
Oh yeah, not from our own laziness this time.
No, uh, we had episode 4, which aired last Sunday.
Yes.
At the regular time, and episode 5 was released. Was this Friday? I think
This Friday evening, yeah, because I sent you
Yeah,
that message.
yeah.
Yeah.
Presumably, in anticipation of the Super Bowl and them wanting people to watch it at all, they put it out early so some people could see it then.
That's very
Uh,
smart, honestly.
yeah, especially since it's something like 2/3 of the entire U.S. population generally watches the Super Bowl.
Woo, I'm unique.
So, yeah, it's as good of an excuse as any to drink some booze and have some junk food.
Fun fact about the Super Bowl this year. I believe
Hmm,
this is the first time in a hot minute that alcohol has taken over a majority of the corporate sponsorships for it.
really?
Because
I'm
I
not surprised. I mean, I guess I
crypto.
kind of am. Oh, no, I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
What's up?
I'm wondering how many crypto ads there's going to be now that everything's thoroughly collapsed.
I give you like probably one or two, and it's
Yeah.
going to not be the big players. It's going to be the fucking late bloomers who think they can
Mm.
still get in on people who aren't aware of FTX collapsing.
I don't know. There's at least 2 of the companies that had Super Bowl ads have since filed for bankruptcy and closed operation. So it'll be interesting. Fun to count. All right. Episode 4. The one after the one with Bill.
Yes.
Ellie and Joel got in their truck from Bill. They are now driving across the US, getting their way, along not stealing, getting gas and stuff, until they come across up on Kansas City, where they've been going on the highways this whole time. And as they get to Kansas City, all the highways that go through the city have been blocked off. And their only other option is to go through the city, sort of block by block, to try to get through it to get back up on the highway on the other side. As they're going through the city, they are attacked by locals of the city who crash their car and try to kill them, basically.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think how to go from there. Um,
It's a really weird scene. I'm not like saying it in like a bad way,
yeah,
but it's like it's uncomfortable.
for sure.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make nearly as much sense as they had it portrayed in the game. Because as they go through the story, they start in the TV show, they start to develop this sort of B plot involving the resistance leader of this local group, who is called Kathleen.
Yes.
And they are very clear to paint her as this villain character who is looking for somebody who she believes led the former Fedra government control to find and kill her brother.
Yes.
So,
Can I point out one thing
Kathleen,
that's really uncomfortable about
please.
Kathleen?
Yes.
She's played by fucking Rose from 2.5 Men, which if anybody's watched
She
that,
is. Oh my God, you're right.
yes.
Oh, that's really weird.
Dude, my mom was the one who discovered that because she was watching it with me, and she's like, "Oh, hey, Rose," and I'm like, "Who the fuck is Rose?" And then she's like, light bulb went off, and I'm like, "No,
Yeah.
no."
Oh wow. Yeah, no, because she has a very distinctive voice, obviously,
Yeah.
and it doesn't really fit the character, but it was kind of a thing where it's just like, God, I know this. Why do I know this? Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes it even weirder. Oh, that's fucking weird.
Although I will say, based off her 2.5 Men character, I wouldn't like put it against her to lead a cult like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, definitely. It's in character for sure.
Very much. So
yeah, so no, please go ahead.
no, I was just saying that is like something you once you see it, you can't stop unseeing it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, tiger blood.
tiger blood.
So this sets up the first big difference in this episode between TV show and the game that I am yet to be convinced was to the benefit of the show. Where in the game, they give the very clear impression that these locals of this large city are in absolute of control of the city. It's not a new thing. It's not. There's no question. They run the city, and they do it very ruthlessly and bloodily by without mercy attacking, killing, looting anything they can off of any outsiders that try to come into their city.
Mm-hmm.
They have clearly in the game at some point overthrown Fedra, but they also very clearly depict it as having been sometime years in the past that happened. It's not a new thing. So there isn't this shifting sort of power dynamic where in the show the people of Kansas City had only it was like what 11 days
10 or 11?
like,
Yeah, it's
yeah, very less than 2 weeks ago overthrew Fedra and murdered all of them. So that's the first big difference, and it I don't think it works. I think it's not an unpopular opinion that Kathleen's character is one of the weaker parts of the episode. She is clearly, from the get go, just kind of a piece of shit. And I don't feel like her inclusion in it really drives any part of the story that we don't have. Especially once we hear the details of the character who she believed turned over her brother. We don't need to know that she was this person's brother.
yeah.
It is ultimately kind of meaningless. And if you just had it be this, I think it's better to have this is going to sound really bad. Having the locals be kind of generic, mostly nameless and faceless to dehumanize them, I think works because it lets you let them do much, much more horrible things without it seeming justified.
The thing with Kathleen, to me, is that she's obviously only here to really prop another character, the character of Henry, who we'll get to in a little bit. Henry, to me, she only serves to elevate what Henry does and like add more depth to him, which I like Henry, don't get me wrong, but I also feel like that's not, you don't need to build Kathleen up as anything other than like maybe a cartoony like villain at this point. Like what they do with her just feels so rushed at times, and it's not like her fault. It's just that you either have to choose. You can either prop Kathleen up or you can prop Henry up, and I think they made the better choice by propping Henry because he's a protagonist. We're supposed to like him. Yeah, it makes one moment in the show feel a lot more powerful, but I don't know if the ends justified the means.
Yeah. Seeing what they did in the game convinces me that it wasn't, because going through the events of episode 4, there ends up being 3 moments, 2 big ones and 1 smaller one that they changed that I don't think are effective. And the biggest one for me is that in the scene where you have Ellie and Joel hiding out in some dilapidated building, sort of peeking through the newspaper that's all taped over the windows.
Yeah.
That setting is taken from the game. But rather than having it just be Ellie and Joel watching out the windows waiting for them to drive by and go away, what happens when they are driving by is there is 2 other clear outsiders that are being chased down by the locals in their big, armored vehicles with machine guns on top. And you get this scene where you have Ellie and Joel hiding in the building where this, roar of the engine, loud gunfire comes in as they brutally gun down these people just in the street out in front of them, um, killing one of them, mortally injuring the other. They hop out of their truck, walk up to them. The local says something along the lines of, "Man, they have nothing. Shoes are all garbage." Shoots the woman and it's bleeding out already, but not quite dead. Shoots her in the back of the head, jumps in their truck, and walks away.
Okay.
And it's this brutal but impossible to miss moment where it tells you these people are bad, they are going to kill anybody they don't know, and they're not going to do it with any reservation. They're just going to kill you and find out if you have anything they want later. And it very clearly sets up the stakes for Ellie and Joel, where they kill them first or they get killed first, and there's no other way about it.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
It's quick, it's like a minute, and then there's no room for doubt at that point.
Can I point out something?
You don't need to know about fucking Brian.
Yeah, what the fuck is up with Brian? Is Brian like the greatest person of all time that this whole city is going to just drop everything they're doing, save for like hunting down Henry, and then just go kill Joel because he shot Brian in the face?
It was their attempt, in my opinion, misguided, to adapt another scene from the game. So part of the gameplay of it is Joel basically being this one-man army, where in the game up to this point we've seen him show his competence up against the zombies in large numbers, and this is Joel showing he doesn't have a problem in the game doing the same thing to people, where you are regularly in the game pitted with Joel having to fight his way through a dozen or more men multiple times in the gameplay heavy sequences. And if you wait during those sequences and you try to go through it stealthily, the people that you're about to kill talk to each other, and you overhear them talking. And one of them talks about the people that Joel killed in one of the buildings prior, where they found the bodies, and it's just like, fuck, man, he killed Brian? Because it's clearly like this guy's friend or something. And they tried to adapt that. Where it's like this little dialogue bit that's really cool in the game because, you know, these are just NPCs basically, and they're having real conversations with one another organically, seemingly. So that's neat. But it feels like them trying to adapt that. And it's kind of weird. I don't know. I'm not sold on it. It's pretty low, pretty low down on the list though of things that I have problems with.
You know, honestly, they could have done a way better job adapting that if they didn't make it so that everybody suddenly knew who Brian was.
Right. And part of the problem of it is that if they have to shoehorn in, if they get, so here's my rewrite. Right?
Yeah.
Get rid of all the Kathleen stuff. Give Ellie and Joel, I want this to be, you're with Ellie and Joel the whole time for like an hour straight with just them being tense, low on ammunition, low on supplies as they had to leave the truck behind, not expecting to have to go through this. Just them adapting, tensely fighting their way through all these people trying to kill them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that makes for a better episode rather than what we got. The underwhelming Kathleen crap, the B plot. It's TV, right? They made it for TV, and TV has B plots, so you don't do that. And I think they needed to turn their TV brain off and treat it more like a short film, where you just stick with it, let it be tense, let it be dark and brutal, and just let Joel and Ellie go through some shit while they kill these people who are trying to kill them, and just let it be tense for a while.
Yeah, I definitely think that could have worked a lot better. Like, honestly, that's what I thought we were going to get with the original scene where they shoot Brian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because they don't do that, they do the Kathleen stuff instead, it leads to it, in my opinion, the biggest fault of it, where they completely changed the dynamic of the scene where Joel first gives Ellie a gun.
Okay.
That's a big point in the game. This is the first point where Joel is saying, I maybe don't trust you, but I trust you enough to not immediately shoot me in the back.
Okay.
And that's a big thing. That's a big thing in this world, right?
Yeah.
And it feels really undercut by Ellie just taking a gun prior and having the gun with her. That is, to me, that is a violation of Joel's trust in her, where they set up this dynamic of, you do what I say, I will protect you. And Ellie is just like, okay, but I don't trust you, so I'm going to grab a gun of my own. And then for Joel to not react to that almost at all also feels wrong. Where it's like they set up this dynamic and then they just kind of don't follow through with it. In the game, there's a very similar scene where Joel is fighting hand to hand with some guy, and the guy he's fighting with starts to get the upper hand and starts to drown Joel in a shallow puddle. And it's this really good scene that I was disappointed that didn't include, where it's of course third person, but it's from tight over the shoulder of Joel's perspective,
Mm-hmm.
where you're looking up through this water that is being agitated by you being drowned, and you see through the the shimmer of the distorted water, you can see the outline of the guy that's drowning you, and another person comes up behind him, and you get the gunshot, and the guy falls dead. And it's Ellie, of course, who just saved Joel's life. And not having that scene just feels wrong. Where it is very key, and then they just scrapped it away for the Brian shit.
That's so weird. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I see why they did things the way they did, but it's also like
Sure. For me, I see why they did it. I think they did it for the wrong reason, and it didn't work as well as it should have, as well as it could have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see what you're putting down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So from that, Joel is first angry that Ellie didn't just run away, that she stayed behind and risked herself, and that she still has a gun. He snatches the gun away from her and scolds her for it. And it's not until later, as they keep going through, where Joel sort of reluctantly gets to the point where he's just like, well, shit, I guess if we're going to get through this, I do have to trust you, and I will let you have a gun. And it feels earned, because it is. They go through all this shit, and they come to the conclusion where Joel isn't right, and he has to deal with that, and Ellie gets a gun. And just having it be that, shot reverse shot conversation where it's just all talked through is not correct in my mind. And it very much changes the presented dynamic of them, right?
Yeah.
Where in the game up to this point, there is, of course, there's the very obvious father-daughter comparison, but Joel clearly doesn't yet believe that. When he says Ellie is cargo, he means it.
Okay, so big question for you. And I'm kind of
Yes.
wondering this now based off everything you told me about the game.
Mm-hmm.
Is TV Joel nicer?
Yes.
That's what I thought.
Very much so.
I get it, because like you have to make your
I think we're gonna
relatable.
see this get to ahead in the next episode based on the little stinger they had at the end for the next one. I think when we get to that next week, it's going to be very apparent how much nicer Joel is, or they're going to get to a point where they try to do what the game did and it's going to feel weird, like Joel was being really dishonest in the last 2 episodes, and we're just going to have to wait and see when it gets to that point.
Okay.
But they very much boxed themselves into a corner where if they go with the game, it isn't going to vibe right, and if they don't go with the game, they're going to have to do something else, and I don't know what they're going to do.
Interesting. Okay. Because like one thing I was wondering is how different are the two versions of Joel and Ellie from games to TV show?
Ellie is pretty close.
Okay.
It's mostly Joel being just kind of too nice to Ellie.
Okay. Interesting.
But I think a not insignificant part of that is that Pedro Pascal is also just kind of a nice dude generally.
Yeah.
And it's hard to shake that.
He has charisma, and that's something I think works a little bit against it.
Yeah, it does, because Joel doesn't nearly as much.
Yeah.
He's not suave.
Because like from what I've seen from the game itself, I'm picturing of like comic book Wolverine almost, where he's just like a gruff dude who's just kind of like a prick to everybody.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And my last thing, this is a very minor complaint, but I don't like it, is that in the game, the gun that Ellie gets is a rifle. And it's very key because when she gets the rifle, in gameplay terms, she is then able to help you by staying safe, sort of in cover in the back and shooting people when it's convenient. Right? It's sort of like in BioShock they how they incorporate the NPC helping you varies from game to game. And that very much becomes a part of her character design from that point on, where in addition to the red t-shirt, the green jacket, and the green backpack, strapped to that backpack is always a rifle.
It's on the game's box art, right?
It literally is.
That's what I thought.
And it's missing. Yeah. Here's the... Oh, that's not quite what I wanted. Yeah. Oh, I have been getting so frustrated this week by WebP images.
Oh, I fucking hate WebP.
Right. It's so fucking... But yes, I sent the box art over. And exactly that. It is the character design is red t-shirt, green backpack, rifle over the shoulder. That is Ellie. And we don't have that. And I don't like it. It's very small and ultimately meaningless, but I don't like it.
It's so strange.
Yeah. So, with that, Ellie and Joel in the show keep going on. They find their way up to a high rise where they're trying to get up to just a high vantage point to see their way out of the town. And they end up spending the night there. They go to bed. There's a good moment of sort of conversation between Ellie and Joel where I'm pretty sure completely different from how they did it in the game, where they have Ellie, sort of pretend to get serious for a minute just to crack a joke, and it sort of cracks Joel's hard exterior a bit in that scene. And then they go to bed, and they're abruptly awoken by what we learn as Henry and Sam holding guns over them. I think that's kind of part of it that definitely shows the difference of Joel, where Joel in the game would have maybe like chuckled literally once, gone, heh, and then gone to sleep again.
Oh, that's kind of funny.
You wouldn't have gotten a belly laugh, right?
Yeah.
And it's not a huge difference, but it's very emblematic of, this Joel is not as much of a no-nonsense tough guy. He's a bit softer. He's a bit happier.
Well, it's television. You have to make your protagonist more likable, I suppose.
Right.
Yeah.
That is the conventional understanding. Yeah. From there, we go into episode 5, which we got early.
It's a Christmas miracle. Thank you, HBO.
It is. Yeah. They knew that my birthday was coming up, and they just had to do it, right?
Yeah, you're welcome, Kyril.
Yeah. So going into episode 5, I think does it start with the flashback, or does it cut to where the end of episode 4 was?
Starts with a flashback.
Starts with the flashback. Okay. So this is the part where we learn a bit more about Henry and Sam. We learn their names are Henry and Sam. And we get to the first big difference of episode 5, and that is that Sam is deaf.
Yes.
That is not in the game.
I expected something really bad to happen because of that.
It works really fucking well in the show.
Yeah.
And I think they deserve credit for that. Where that is a very large risk, but they did a very good job with it. And I have to give them credit for it.
So what I originally thought would happen, especially when they talked about going into like the maintenance tunnels, I was under the impression we would get a sequence where they were going through the dark in the sequence tunnels, and there would be clickers in there. But because Sam cannot hear them, Sam doesn't know where they are. So there would be like this whole thing where they get separated, and Sam, being deaf, wouldn't be able to avoid the clickers. Yeah. That was my big fear going into it. I'm a little sad they didn't go that route, but if it wasn't in the source material, I can kind of understand that.
Right.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. It was completely new for the show, and it
works.
It works. It makes it a bit of a different story, but it is effective, and I can't deny that. Um, so we get to see uh, Sam and Henry and the immediate aftermath of the Kansas resistance people overthrowing Fedra, killing all the Fedra officers, um, as they, try to make their way to a safe place.
Mm-hmm.
And ends up being showing what Henry and Sam coming to the place of a doctor that Kathleen has ordered to be killed. In the previous episode, it shows Sam and Henry getting to his house, and he has a little sort of safe house place up in his attic where he's able to stow them. And he has a bunch of food, and that's sort of like their holdout to figure out what to do next.
Yes.
And as we learned in the prior episode, that doctor ends up being very much made unalive and is unable to help Henry and Sam out. So they're forced to sort of rely on their own. Rely on themselves. And it is a good chance to sort of uh, show who Henry and Sam are as individuals and their relationship to one another. It's good. It doesn't do a whole lot plot wise yet, but it does a good job of setting up these new characters and making you care about them.
I definitely got more of a father vibe from Henry than an older brother,
Mm-hmm.
but I get it, like,
Yeah.
from what they did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
From there, after I think that's like the 11 days period, Henry sort of comes to the inevitable conclusion that the doctor isn't going to be coming back for whatever reason, probably because he was killed by Kathleen, and they start to think about their ways of getting out of the city. There's a good bit before then when he first comes up on the doctor where Henry has a gun out and is pointing it, as he's entering the building, and the doctor sort of jumps out, does the same thing, and they both realize who each other are. They lower their weapons, and it's then revealed that neither of them has any bullets. They're both empty guns that they're just sort of posturing with.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a little fun thing, but it also shows how Henry has basically nothing. At this point, they've run out of food, they have no ammo, they just have themselves and their knowledge of the surrounding area. So as they come to the conclusion that, all right, we're going to have to rely on ourselves now and do something, a bunch of gunfire breaks out. Not explosion, big crash. Looks out the window of the attic and he sees from the attic the encounter that Joel had at the car get crashed and killed Brian. And
R.I.P. Brian.
basically, yeah, we get it spelled out a bit more explicitly later, but comes to the decision of that guy can't stay in this city either. He's got a kid with him. I bet I can sort of tag along and use him as muscle to get us all out of the city.
Which is a smart plan.
Yeah, it's a good idea. And ultimately it works. He meets up with Joel, with a bit more of a confrontational experience than Joel might have liked as he gets woken up in the middle of the night. Henry goes through his plan that there is a bunch of service tunnels under the city of Kansas that the contractors who built a lot of the common areas built into the city, and that while Fedra said that they were full of infected, Fedra actually knew for a while that they were actually empty, and that they can use these empty tunnels to get under the barricades that the resistance people have set up on the perimeter of the city and get out. And they do that. As they're making their way through the tunnels, I want to bring this up because it was a good bit from the game. They come to what is clearly some sort of a settlement underground. I don't think they actually say it anywhere, but in the game, it is this little settlement that's called Ish. And it's exactly what it looks like. Some people were in these tunnels. They set it up as kind of a stronghold from the infected in the area. And they even went to the extent, they were long enough, they're in that area long enough in these tunnels to set up like school areas.
Mm-hmm.
In the game, you get a lot more time in that area, and there's no way to really transfer it over from the game into the show, since you learn about this town as you're exploring, seeing visually what happened in this place, and finding diaries and notes from people who used to live there. Um, it paints a very interesting and kind of hopeful, almost new perspective for how people are surviving, after the apocalypse. That these sorts of communities can exist and last for clearly a very long time, even if it's not forever. Um, and that, it's a hopeful moment, even though it gets kind of undercut at both ends by the impending threats that they're experiencing. But it is a hopeful moment. And it was cool. It was really cool to see it included. They didn't have to do that. With the way that they sort of restructured everything, I was not expecting them to include it, so it was nice they did.
Hmm. Good shit.
Yeah. From there, go ahead, please.
Oh, yes. So, do you want me to handle the cap, or do you want me to just kind of give my thoughts?
Either.
Okay. So, I just wanted to point out I really liked that little scene because it got to show that Ellie and Sam are actually still kids at heart,
Yeah.
which I think would be a little hard to kind of point out in this show because Ellie swears like a fucking sailor, and well, there are dead people everywhere. Yep.
It
Regardless,
is. It's made. They do make that a little bit more difficult in the show, where there's clearly much more of an age gap between Ellie and Sam. Where in the game they are portrayed as being pretty much the exact same age.
really,
Yeah, Sam in the game is like 12 to 14
oh,
versus looking to be like 8.
okay, that makes
So
more sense.
yeah.
So then we get to the big climax of this episode where you told me this was a gameplay segment, correct? Where we
I would
have
say at this point, we while they're in Ish, they learn, or Henry explains to Joel his backstory.
oh yes, you're
How
right.
he was a collaborator with Fedra, that he fed them information in exchange for medicine to treat Sam, who had leukemia. And the information that he gave was where Fedra could find Kathleen's brother, who was the former head of the resistance prior to him being murdered by Fedra.
As happens.
As you do.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that is kind of entirely new information they didn't have in the game that sets up the B plot stuff with Kathleen. And then yeah, so they keep going on, get their way out of the tunnels, and find their way into this suburban place on the other side of on the outskirts of Kansas City.
This was my favorite part of the whole episode. I'm not saying it's like perfect or anything like that, but the whole tension of being pinned down by a sniper, which it's not really a sniper, but you know what I mean, but by a rifle. It was really cool to me because it's one of those moments where you can tell they're directly adaptating gameplay. Um, and from there we get the famous Joel sniping, well, shooting his rifle while Fedra is, well, not Fedra, the Kathleen and friends are,
Kathleen and Co.
yeah, coming in, chasing down Sam, Henry, and Ellie. Now, this is where you said there's a huge difference because when Joel snipes the gentleman out of the car and he crashes into a house full of infected come in, right?
Yes. So this is where they take the scale of everything, and like they kind of have been doing before, they kind of just turn everything up to 11. Where in the game you fight off about a dozen people leading up to the sniping segment, and then in the sniping segment there's maybe a dozen more, followed by the scene where Joel shoots the driver of the armored vehicle. Now in the show there is the entirety of the Kansas City militia in tow, in like 5 different trucks all stacked up. And in the game, when the car crashes into the house, you get like a household's worth of infected that come out. While in the show, we get World War Z. as it's literally a stream of infected running up from this hole that was created in the ground.
I could not imagine how many actors they actually had for all that. Could you imagine?
I have to imagine parts of that were augmented in with CG.
Okay, you're right. You're probably
Because
right.
I was thinking about that, and I don't know how they could do that safely with that many people.
I just don't know. It's absolutely crazy to me. It is
Yeah,
a genuinely impressive feat of television
mm,
for me.
definitely is. It was effective. Um,
Yes.
it felt a bit too much at times, but it devolves into chaos pretty damn quickly.
But Chiral, there could have been more. No, this is the most cartoony thing about this whole scene. There's never a point where zombies aren't pouring out of that sinkhole. Yeah.
Well, and then it ends with the entirety of all the zombies running to Kansas City.
Yeah. Fuck Kansas City. Kansas City is
Which,
screwed. Your whole militia just got destroyed.
yeah,
Yeah.
and there's the entire former population of the city is now trying to get back.
Yeah. Family reunion,
Yeah,
y'all. Grandma and grandpa are coming for a visit.
it's weird. I don't know why they decided to have it be to nearly that scale, um, but they did.
Yeah,
So
there's fucking
what can
fire
you
all
say?
over the place, and
Yeah.
there's a couple cool things. I like the set piece a lot,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not gonna argue when I say it's a little cartoony at times.
It definitely is.
Yeah,
Even in this zombie post-apocalyptic world, it felt unrealistic.
yeah. I did like it the part where like the baby clicker jumps on Kathleen and like takes her down.
That was good. They did well with that being kind, not really foreshadowed, but closing the sort of narrative loop
Yeah,
where there was some line from Kathleen about, like, of course we're going to kill the children or something like that. Or just
children
being sort of,
die. Yeah,
yes. And then the clicker child makes her die.
yeah.
So that was a good little narrative tool.
Ironic.
Yeah, it was.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, they get into this big fight with the four of them and the bad guys and the clickers. And then Kathleen tries to stop them. Kathleen dies. They run away. They get away, stop in a motel somewhere further along, and we get it revealed. This is done to the same end, but it gets to there differently. So in the game, they basically just go to bed,
Okay.
and it cuts to the morning. In the show, we get a much more extended sequence of Henry and Joel being in the sort of like outer part of one of the motel rooms, sort of being on guard a bit. And Sam and Ellie are in the bedroom of the motel room, in, with the intent being that they go to bed.
Yeah.
They don't. They found a comic book of some in-universe comic called Savage Starlight, which is from the game.
Yeah.
That was their sort of like fake comic book thing from the game. So it was nice to see that they just kept that the same rather than making it a real property like they did with the Mortal Kombat arcade machine. Um, they stay up later than they should reading through the Savage Starlight comic together. And as they do that, Sam reveals to Ellie that he was bitten in the prior engagement that they had with literally all the infected.
Yo, when they were like, when Sam and Henry are under the car and there's just like all those infected like clawing at them,
Mm-hmm.
that was genuinely terrifying, and I'm upset they didn't show like more of what was going on in that scene. I know they did it for this reveal, but
Yeah.
like they could have done some creative stuff with the camera work.
It does feel kind of weird, and especially with how much younger Sam is here than in the game, that and Sam and the show being deaf, that Henry didn't check to make sure. In the game, Sam's a bit older, he can talk. So when Henry says, Sam, are you okay? Sam can just be like, yeah, I'm fine, and just kind of try to hide it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't quite. It feels wrong.
That's poor parenting, Henry.
Yeah. So Sam has been bitten, and
Yes.
Ellie reveals to Sam that she is immune. And she tries to heal his infection by cutting her hand and putting her blood on his open cut, the open bite.
That is disgusting to me, by the way. I'm so sorry.
It very much is.
That is the most unsettling thing in this whole show, and it's literally about fungus people.
I get why they did it.
Yeah.
From a narrative perspective, they are trying to show how Ellie wants to, especially with the superhero comic, Ellie wants to be the superhero. She wants her surviving being bitten to matter.
Yes.
And this is her trying to do that. And they go to bed, and they wake up. It turns out that it didn't. And overnight, Sam's infection has progressed much more to the point where he is now one of the zombies. And he attacks Ellie. As Ellie is trying to keep Sam from hurting her, Joel responds first, picks up his gun, which Henry responds, tells him to stop, points his gun at Joel, while Sam is still trying to attack Ellie. You get Ellie's cries. In the sort of split-second decision, Henry shoots Sam. Realizing what he did, and sort of coming to terms with the fact that he just shot and killed his brother, he then shoots himself.
Yes. And to be honest, I screamed at my television because I'm like, no, don't you fucking do it. Don't do it. You'd want you to live on, Henry.
Mm-hmm.
I was a really impactful scene. I really liked that.
Mm-hmm. It was very good. Yeah, no notes. They did a great job with it.
Yeah. And like it's stuff like that makes like the Kathleen bullshit almost worth it, because the whole thing is to just show that, like, Sam basically collaborated with Henry collaborated with Fedra
Yeah.
with the fucking evil fascist people to be able to protect his brother, and then in the end he had to kill him anyway because he couldn't protect him well enough.
Yep.
That is such a sad way of going out.
It's very bleak.
Yeah. And then they bury them, and Ellie puts little Sam's like little notepad thing down and says, I'm sorry, which I'm really sad about that.
Yeah. I'm kind of torn on it. In the game, it just hard cuts after Henry kills himself, where they clearly tell you that Henry kills himself.
Yeah.
But there's not a moment for any sort of healing or reflection. It just goes to the next scene after that. And I'm not sure which way is better.
I mean, I guess it depends on the medium, because like,
it's true, it does.
Game logic, you gotta go. Like television, you can end it there, and we still have to sit with that for like a whole week.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah. I see why they chose the way they did.
I would have rather the entire adult population of the US felt really shitty for the next week instead.
Yeah.
No. I get why they did it. It closes it off a bit more. But again, I think it contributes to the overall tone of or how the tone has changed, right?
Yeah.
Leaving these sort of unresolved everything as the world goes to shit around Joel, leaving these things unresolved helps to build the narrative. But you're right. In a game, you don't have to wait a week, or in this case, a week and a half, to figure out what happens next. You do get to just sort of go to the next.
Joke's on you, man. I watched this episode today, so it's only a week for me.
Um, yeah, for me, I mentioned this when we're in the Discord chat, where this is to me the point where I just have to kind of accept where it is not going to be as faithful of an adaptation as I would have wanted it to, where they're going to keep making a lot of small changes to make it fit for TV in a way that I think tells a different enough story that it's not the same story.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's still good, but it is just different.
I think I can confidently say I'm a Last of Us fan now. Because again, I know nothing about this franchise all over the place, but like I see why people care so much about this. And it's not even like I'm not even at the source material. This is just like an adaptation, and it's a very potent story that's telling.
Mm-hmm. I will say the biggest bullshit possible related to the Last of Us TV show isn't the TV show itself. It is that the last episode of the TV show should air on March 12th. And you have to wait all the fucking way until March 28th for the Last of Us Part 1 to release on Steam. That should be criminal.
Whoever did that with the release schedule
Yep.
should get fired.
They should.
You are losing money. You are bleeding dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Oh well.
Yeah. It's honestly the stupidest part is that they didn't release the PC port at the same time as they did the PS5 port of The Last of Us. That was very disappointing when I heard, because I heard, oh, they redid The Last of Us again, and it's really good apparently. Oh, they're doing it on PC too. But you might have to wait 5 months.
What would take it 5 months over a PS5 port?
Literally nothing. Oh, it's done.
Yeah.
It is just console exclusive bullshit. They want people to buy the PS5 that doesn't exist.
You can't get a PS5, my dudes. Get over it. There's no such thing as a PlayStation 5.
I'll say though, it is very effective for people like me who've been fans of this game for the better part of a decade at this point.
Yeah,
it was the first thing that kind of made me go like, well, maybe I do get a PlayStation 5. Maybe it is worth it. I didn't, but it's the first thing I've seen that made me think maybe it is.
I don't know, man. I'm looking at these prices, $500, and you got to give an invitation to buy it off Amazon.
It's messed up.
Yeah,
but
this is fucked, dude. This is why I stick with Nintendo.
I'm holding out against capitalism, and I'm just waiting a month and a half. I'm doing my part.
You're doing your part. You'll get mod support at least.
Well, probably eventually. I don't think I would do that though. That feels kind of wrong.
You think that feels kind of wrong? I don't know.
Yeah.
Hear me out, right?
It's like okay, you can go out and take, say, The Godfather and recut it. Should you? Should you really?
Yes.
You can. But it doesn't feel right.
Yes. I will look up a Godfather YouTube poop right now.
That's not the same.
I would say so. Like,
I mean, like, inject your own fan footage in the middle of it.
Okay, that makes a little more sense.
That's what I mean. Like take the movie, change up the order of scenes, change up who the characters are, but still have it be overall the same thing.
There are surprisingly a large amount of fucking Godfather YouTube poops.
I'm sure there are.
Yes, but go on with your analogy, your anecdote.
Yeah. I'm sure people will do that, just as I'm sure somebody didn't like a scene in The Godfather and they went out in the forest of Pennsylvania or some shit with their buddies and reshot it and made their own fan film edit of that scene. People are going to probably make mod support for The Last of Us Part 1. I personally will never use it because Even if the story isn't perfect, I don't think people are going to be able to improve it.
But dude,
Because it's pretty damn good.
you can make it where you're Shrek instead of Joel.
Oh, so I will very gladly watch the YouTube poops of people who do that, but I will not be doing it myself.
You could be Joker from Persona 5.
Oh, see, you had me when you said Joker, but then of Persona 5.
Oh, I'm sorry. You could be Joaquin Phoenix Joker. I can't think of any other like really
I'm
cursed.
sure there will be some very creative people who do something along those lines of it, like have Shrek Joel fighting through the Kansas City rebels while Donkey Ellie is sniping from the building behind him, but it'll be funny for about 2 minutes.
5 seconds max.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
I wanna
unless
play
you
through
like
a whole
change
game
their
like that.
lines to like be quotes from the
Oh,
movie, it won't work.
You absolutely have to. You got to do that.
Yeah.
If you're not doing that, you're not doing it right.
Of course. You
But
could be
yeah,
Sonic
no,
the Hedgehog.
Yes, you can. I'm just not yet convinced you should.
There's nothing sacred left in this world.
I can still pretend.
You can still pretend. You could be Walter White from the popular TV show Breaking Bad.
That would be funny.
That would be fucking hilarious. And then
That might even be funny for a whole 10 seconds.
No, then you have Ellie as Jesse Pinkman. Mwah,
Yeah.
chef's kiss.
I'm sure there will be people who do that.
Someone's going to do it, and I'm not going to be happy when that happens. Because I will demand a cut of the clout. You heard it here first on the Two Schmoes Show, ladies and gentlemen.
Coming up next week,
yes,
with the next episode, we will see
Cowboys.
They show this in the stinger. Not quite.
Oh.
They find Tommy.
Yes.
And the big change that I noticed right away just from the stinger they had there is that they have slightly changed the location that happens in. Where this is a big change that sort of happens sort of quietly between The Last of Us Part 1 and Part 2, is that in Part 1, when you meet Tommy, he's in this little village out in Wyoming. But you meet him at the dam that powers that village while they're trying to get the dam up and running again. In the show, it seems like they're just going straight to the town. And that's like not a huge change, but it is, the town can only be described, even in the game, as like a cozy place. And throughout all of The Last of Us Part 1, I don't think you can describe any of it as cozy. I think that's good. Everything is clearly dirty and dilapidated. People have either been living in squalor or not living in these places at all for, the entirety of the time since the outbreak. And I'm not sure how I'm going to like that or not. I think tonally, it's going to be kind of wrong. But we'll have to see.
Okay.
But it's very, to their credit, like with everything, it's a very good recreation of the town. Just from the little bit that they showed, and as little of the town as you actually see in the games, they did a damn good job. So, got to give credit where it's due. There are very talented people working on this.
Now, please don't let the One Piece adaptation on Netflix get ruined. I can't handle another Bebop.
I don't know. I can at least appreciate the Bebop one. I think more so for just saying, you know what? Let's do something completely different.
I still mourn it, and I hate having to okay, real talk into Corey's personal life right here. Fucking, yes. You are the only person in my life I don't have to defend liking live action Bebop with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody else fights me on it. But you know what? You know what? Fuck you. I will like what I like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It clearly has large moments where it's not good, but I really appreciate it for what it is.
You know, at least it wasn't fucking Dragon Ball Evolution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, oh man, we're going off the rails now. I think it is still so fucking wild how much hate that uh oh god, what's his name? John Cho got
Oh
as
yeah.
Spike.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's not 1-to-1. Yeah, he looks a bit older, but come the fuck on. It is still pretty damn good.
Dude, like seriously, if he was trying too hard beat Spike, it'd be cringe. Cause like
Yeah.
we all know you can't really do 1-to-1 mannerisms of an anime character in real life because it's fucking cringe.
Of course.
Yeah.
I can appreciate the hate that they got for changing the story, and particularly for changing some of the storylines around Gren and whatever the fuck it was that they did in the last episode. But man, that's something that I just still don't get because people were livid.
You know, everybody but like Spike and I'm sorry, not Spike, Vicious and Ed, I will defend as being good in their roles.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
There was just some parts of Gren's in particular that people found a bit disrespectful to the character that I can appreciate. But
So full disclosure, I know
yes.
Gren in the live action. I do not
Yeah.
know Gren that well in the actual show. I think I was like busy while I was watching those episodes.
Much smaller role.
Okay.
Where they are, remember the sort of ice planet one where they go to?
Yeah.
They are the woman who is much less obviously trans because it's anime.
Yeah.
That they meet up with on that planet that Vicious knows, who they are like the ex-military person. When you rewatch because I rewatched it after, you immediately go, oh yeah, I remember that, and it clicks. But no, I can appreciate how it not because the character fills a completely different role, and I think people were justified in being just kind of like, what the fuck? If you're gonna change the role this much, just have it be a different character.
Fair enough. Because like I remember like Gren just being like a totally different like personality.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it is. In the show, Gren is ex-military.
Yep.
And they definitely aren't in the live action.
No, they are not. Okay, cool. Well, there we go, defending, doing our weekly defense of Cowboy live action. So overall, I have to ask.
Yes.
Do you think Pedro Pascal and is a good Joel?
Yeah, I still do. I think that whoever did the casting was not wrong for doing it.
Okay.
They clearly have an eye for picking talent for these various roles, and I don't think Pedro Pascal was wrong for it. Like, short of just getting like actual Nolan North or something like that, and even then, it probably, or was it Nolan North? I can't even remember. Whoever like the voice actor for Joel was, who did mocap as well. Like, short of that, I don't think you're gonna get much better.
Okay. Now, what about Bella Ramsey?
I am still not convinced on that. For legal reasons, I can appreciate why they got an adult to play a child's role. I think it would have been better if they got somebody who was actually like, 14 to 16, but I can appreciate why they didn't.
Okay. You know more about the character than I do.
Yeah, well, I mean, the big thing, and that's why there's a lot of, child actors are actually like just barely adults that look younger than they are.
Yeah.
Or why, particularly back in like the early 2000s, there were all of the identical twin child actors, is because the number of hours that you can have a child work on a given day is significantly less than you can have an adult work.
That's true.
So they would have the twins switch out because they look the exact fucking same, and you could have a child work the same amount of time as an adult. Uh, and similarly, if you just get an adult that looks young, you can just have them treat them legally as an adult because they are, even if it does look kind of awkward. So, yeah, Bella Ramsey is easily one of like visually furthest from the original depictions of all the characters, but she's doing a great job. She's clearly a very talented actor, and for her acting is very emblematic of Ellie, even if like visually she's obviously not one to one like some of the other characters are.
Yeah. I don't mind that per se, but again, I'm not invested in the source material like a lot of
Yeah,
people are.
right. It's like in the same way that Pedro Pascal visually is a very good match for Joel, even if tonally it's not. Uh, Bella is visually not the best match for Ellie, but tonally is very spot on.
Fair enough, fair enough.
Yeah, so can't complain.
Any last minute additions you would like to add before we close out this year's Super Bowl special of the Two Schmoes show?
Oh man, no, I don't think so.
Okay, okay. Well, I am the infamous Orion, and I support our local train unions because they stop fuck ups like this.
Yeah, and I'm Cairo, and I'm also a Schmo.
And this has been the Two Schmo Show, ladies and gentlemen.